Hi, my name is Ryan Jinks and I am filming where I am so I can give you guys a live-ish update on what's going on with the Shawn Snyder bolting drama in Yosemite. There's been such great engagement, so much attention has been given to this, which I think will help the situation. So I feel like a lot of you guys need to be, I owe you an update instead of leaving everyone in the dark from just kind of dropping that bomb on everybody. Now, I do not charge patrons for these update videos. I'd like to actually do them a little bit more often to just cut so many things in irons in the fire that I feel like this would be helpful to just kind of drop an update video without my YouTube voice, which yes, I am trying to eliminate the YouTube voice. Clearly people like this more. Now let me give you an update on the actual bolt situation. We have several groups that are very excited about getting this fixed and fixed right. And so we're actually in a, we've got a couple different messages going, but we're all working together and we're talking about what glue to use, what bolts to use, how to do it, whether or not to do certain areas. The rostrum is closed right now, so we are going to wait on that. There's bird closures. And so we're really trying to do this right and doing it to where everyone agrees on how we're going to do it, which is super awesome. And we will update the slackline.com/Yosemite page once that has been fixed. And so you know if you're going to come visit, if you can use these bolts for highlining, so you can check on there. I do want to give a shout out to the Rangers. They've been really good at communicating. Even the BLM here at Moab has been great at communicating with us because there's threats on the area here as well. I do feel like they are on our side. They feel bad about what has happened and they are doing everything they can to make this problem go away. Ironically, there were no laws broken. So there's only so much they can do. The bolts are not national park property. And so it's just this weird gray area, which kind of really sucks. And so we don't want access to be shut down for highlining because all of this drama is going on. And we don't want a bolting war because that's not what this is. We're just trying to have some bolts to highline. And that would be devastating if we lost access for highlining over something like this. And Shawn doesn't even get a ticket, let alone banned from the park. I don't see that happening. That is something I've expressed to the Rangers. They understand. I feel like they're on our side, but they can only do what they can do. And so hopefully maybe laws can be put in place. I don't know what the solution is. I would like to respond to some of the messages and give you even a backstory on what's going on. There's probably a lot of confusion why somebody's just whacking bolts over in Yosemite. Some comments are pretty violent. I don't think that's very helpful. That's not going to move us forward. Threatening to smash fingers is not good for you for saying that in writing, and it's not actually going to happen. That's not helpful. That's not how we solve these things. So good can win over bad if we stay good. So please, let's be adults in the comments. And there are some people who don't agree that there are highline bolts in Yosemite at all. There are less than 100, I believe, combined bolts total for all the highlines in Yosemite. There are over 10,000 on El Capitan alone. Like, perspective. Our sport is just as valid as climbing, and it just doesn't take that much. And a lot of the new lines we've established have no new bolts. A lot of the stuff we're establishing is rigged with just wrapping boulders or trees or just using traditional gear like cams or nuts. So, chillax. We're not bolting all of Yosemite and ruining the nature of the thing. We eliminated bolts at Nevada Falls when that was deemed to be too popular of an area and they wanted highline to be in less popular areas. I totally get it. We're sharing the park with 3 million people. We're not the only people there, but the other 2.99 million people are not the only people there as well. Let's have some balanced views, please. I'm going to try to explain the backstory. It's weird. There's not a lot to it. I noticed in 2015 there were bolts that people were complaining about at the rostrum specifically. I spent a lot of time there at that point. And Dean had just a ton of bolts there. People were pretty upset while Dean was still alive about all the bolts that he sprayed to do highlining. That's kind of where highliner sprayed bolts kind of came from. And after he passed away, he kind of reached sainthood, which I believe, like, he's a huge inspiration to me. But people forgot the fact that they were mad about the bolts. Anyways, I thought that was still relevant. And we ran into him at the cafeteria, the lodge. one time, and me and my friend Justin, we talked to him. It's like, hey, do you use those bolts? Do you care about them? And he's like, no, man, pull them out. So we got explicit permission from him to pull them out. Now, at this time, I did not know who Shawn Snyder was. There's no names on these bolts. There's no written history on this stuff. Like, I researched highlighting on the internet, trying to learn highlighting. That's why I made a highline channel. And so anyways, we removed the bolts that Dean put in, and we noticed the other bolts are super rusty. I pulled one out with the back of a little tiny hammer. Like, I didn't even have to use like a piton that's shaped like a fork as a tuning fork to pull it out. It took nothing to get this thing out. Now you're pulling in shear. Probably not going to die. There's 3 of them. But do you put in a stop sign after people die, or do you see a problem and then put the stop sign in and it is prevention? The bolts probably would have lasted 10, even 20 more years, but they had to be changed. And they weren't stainless. None of the stuff that was replaced was stainless. And we want to have century long lasting bolts. We want to have stuff that'll last longer than us. So we changed the bolts, and then Shawn popped up and was like, whoa, you didn't ask permission. And I'm like, who are you? And because I didn't know who he was, and he really wants to be recognized for the stuff he did do in Yosemite as I don't want to call it an OG highliner, but technically he was highlining in the 90s, I believe, which makes him OG by definition. And so he was quite upset that we were kind of the new kids on the block, and we were establishing the bigger lines to the rostrum and changing his bolts and pulling out Dean's bolts, which he attempted to kill and went to jail for. So I don't know why he thinks he's such buddies with Dean, but whatever. Anyways, so he just kind of latched on to being mad at me. And then we changed the rest of the bolts to the rostrum, and then he got mad at that because we only did parts. Then we changed taft point. Then we added bolts at elephant. There were already bolts there, we just changed them. And we changed the bolts on Lost Arrow Spire, and that is where he really got mad. Because I guess he wanted to change them. He kind of expressed that he wanted to, but he expressed it 2 years prior. Nothing was happening. There were no plans in the works. I wanted to have it changed because we have topos coming out in the new Big Wall book. And so it's like, oh, all the bolts are going to be this. I wanted to change. I'm not going to work with Shawn Snyder. He's threatened verbally, I don't have written documentation of this, of killing me twice. And so it's like, I'm not going to interact with somebody who clearly doesn't hold back hatred for me. And so I don't feel like I've had 2 conversations with him. I don't feel like I owe him more of my time. I didn't even bring him up in this channel for the longest time until he basically just did what he did, and I'm not exactly stoked on making him more popular and giving him attention for doing bad things, because I think that's what he wants out of this. So here you go, Shawn, you're getting more attention. So he doesn't like the fact we were establishing all the big stuff at Rostrum and Taft, and other people established a longer line at Lost Arrow Spire, but he wasn't like super mad about that. I don't understand why he's latched onto me. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I understand some of the feelings of like, oh, I put in those bolts, I want to be the ones who replaces them, and that's not logical. It's not. No, I don't own those bolts. When I put those bolts in, I don't own them anymore. I don't have to ask permission to change something if I'm making it better with my own dollars. I'm not changing anything. I'm just changing the metal in the rock. People are getting bombed in the Middle East right now. There are children starving around the world. We are in too small of a sandbox if this is such a big problem. So, perspective. This isn't that big of a deal. Even the smashed bolts aren't even a big deal. We're going to go fix them. Over long periods of time, good always overcomes bad. So, like, it would be real shitty if he smashed them again. But they'll get changed again. Like, long enough term, we'll have bolts there. And it's going to leave less of a trace if they don't get smashed over and over and over in the name of leave no trace. I don't understand the concept. I don't understand him. I don't understand why this is such a big deal. All I know, this has been kind of a thing in the back of my mind that this guy really doesn't like me, and everything I do is kind of like, you know, it's fine with some people not stoked on the videos or the channel or whatever. I get it. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but oh my gosh, this is like way over the top. I always wondered where the 1 thumbs down came from on every video. Now we know he watches these. So here is a message to you, Shawn. I think you're right. I think bolts should be carefully placed. I think they should be installed well. I think we should have less of them. I think you're going about it the wrong way. And I wish we could go about this differently. So I don't know how. I'm not going to communicate with you individually. So please don't smash the bolts. I am going to emotionally and possibly with supplies support the rebolting of those bolts that were smashed. And I'm not going to actually interact with it directly in an effort to have you maybe not associate that with me anymore. So I didn't put in the bolts at the fruit bowl. I put in probably like 6 of them. So if you want to smash stuff because I put in, I'm not putting stuff in. And so please stop damaging these things because we're going to have to replace them. It's going to damage the rock. Not that I really care to appease you, especially at this point, but I don't know what I could do if I could. I'm not bolting anything else in Yosemite. Yosemite's done. Don't worry. Anything I establish there or anybody else is establishing there, we're not putting bolts in. So if you're worried about those things, relax. It's done. We're not doing anymore. Please stop. That's what I have. That's my message to you, man. Now, thank you to my audience for being so engaged with this, for your support and seeing that this thing turns out right. I don't really have a call to action where awareness has been pretty helpful for this so far. Don't really think we need to be blowing up the Rangers email. If you have written documentation that'll help our case against Shawn, yes, that is nice to send over to them. But we're not trying to blow up anybody's phones or anybody's emails just to be annoying. I think there's been a lot of attention given to this. We might do one more video once things are fixed to update if that's even necessary. I'm trying to just give people a little bit more context for dropping a bombshell on them in the last video. But I don't want to make this the theme of the damn channel. We really want to promote and educate people with bolting videos, testing things that are debated on whether or not they're good, and having the bolting Bible available for anybody. It's free, so people can learn how to bolt well. This is my contribution to the community so we can bolt things better in a scalable way, getting the knowledge out there in the best way we can. We're going to have several languages in addition to what we currently have. The 2021 version, I swear, is coming out soon. I'm just video dumping before the Pushing the Line show comes out. But yes, I really want to have people's feedback. I'm not an expert per se on this. I just study it a lot and I've done lots of tests. More feedback on this. Shawn, if you have helpful feedback on removing, replacing stuff, I'm open to hearing it. But to say that I'm not qualified for any of this, especially 5 years after researching this, is not valid anymore. So either contribute or get off the pot, man. Eventually, all of this will blow over, hopefully sooner than later. And every bolt ever installed around the world from this point on will last 100+ years, so we can all enjoy these sports that depend on them, so we can be as safe-ish as possible. Thank you for watching. Cheers.